I mean, the idea of decentralization sounds really beautiful, but in real life, on the practical term, I'm not sure I even know how it works.
Well, theatre is more of a diversified, distributed, a society where the resources are more evenly distributed.
Hi, my name is Yana. Thank you for watching. This episode starts with an audio introduction and continues with the video content. So remember to watch it until the end. And subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, share with friends. Thank you for being here and listening to timeless teachings. Welcome to the world of consciousness, human development, and full potential. Here we have conversations with people from all over the world about the subjects that matter for our mind, body, and soul, so that you can create a truly spectacular life. It is all about weaving the sacred, the soulful, and the ordinary into our everyday existence. Inhale, exhale, and let's begin. This is Timeless Teachings, a global podcast with Yana Fry. Have you asked yourself, how can we integrate business and spirituality? Why decentralized financing and crypto are such an important part of the newly created world? Why the Earth is going through a major energetic shift right now and what it means for all of us. Why simplicity, self-sustainability, technology, and community is the future of our society. Today our guest is Tony Knight, whose mission is to awaken freedom in humanity through expressing and applying the natural laws of reality to our lives. One of his life tasks has been to decode the world system matrix by using the blockchain so that we can create a new economic system based on serving the people and creating universal freedom inside and out. Decentralization is Kryptonite to the centralized matrix, says Tony. Let's welcome him and find out.
Tony, thank you very much for joining us on Timeless Teachings. It is a pleasure to have you here with us for the interview today.
It's a pleasure for me too, Yana. I'm really excited about talking about my favorite subjects. And
exactly. I love this connectivity that I'm in Singapore. I believe you're in New Zealand right now. Is it correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. In Auckland.
In Auckland, yes. I'm coming there soon with retreat in November, actually. I mentioned it to you to New Zealand. So I'm
wow. Oh, I have to come meet you.
Yes, to visit your country again. Yes. And for us, the way how we usually do that, we start with guests sharing a little bit about themselves. So my first question for you would be, tell us a little bit more about Tony. Who is Tony?
Okay. I was born and bred in Auckland. I grew up in a fairly I guess we're on the verge of a whole new generational shift in New Zealand, and it was a great lifestyle. It was very much like a retreat lifestyle growing up as a kid, with collecting our own water, growing our own food. We caught a lot of the food from the fish, and we grew our own fruit trees, and we had orchards all through. So I was brought up with this very strong connection to nature and the understanding of the natural elements shape our life, and they also, we shape the elements. And then I, curious soul, I went overseas quite early, stayed away quite a long time, and did a lot of traveling. That just opened up my spiritual awakening quite heavily. And then I came back to New Zealand and I started a new age crystal shop. And then from there, I did many things just to survive. I was having a good time in the shop, but it was hard to make a living. So learning the integration of business with a spiritual mission was quite a challenge. But what it did, it molded me into being creative. And that's really my main value is creativity, truth, freedom. They're really about consciousness, and the business itself became a conscious. And then, eventually now I'm dealing in, working with decentralized finance and working with crypto, but also it's with still a spiritual mission of creating and enjoying, doing what I love. So basically, it brought me to this point in history as well, where I've been taught through the shop and everything, basically sort of got given a nod that, better watch out for these times. So,
beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And you know what I love about our conversation today, that you are actually a person who comes from the spiritual world and financial world at the same time. And so I'm looking forward, to talking about both and to showing how it's all interconnected. And I love to your point, very often when we are on a spiritual journey, then most people then start struggling with money for whatever reason, right? So either struggling with making money or keeping money or multiplying money, or in general, just being near money. And then also it comes with certain struggles around just material world, right? So there's this often split between what we call spirituality and what we call materialism. And I think you and I had this conversation a little bit earlier when we both shared that we both went on a similar journey where, you go through a massive spiritual exploration only to learn that it all comes back into the society and business and family and like in this famous book, right? After the ecstasy comes the laundry. That's right. So, or the same, we could say, come money or comes business. It's the same.
It was a big lesson for me. You were so on the button. It was such an accurate description of my earlier foray into, sort of threw the baby out with the bathwater. But it is to survive in business, you've got to balance the two. So that was definitely incredible learnings, though, because I was always thinking, it was forcing you to create on the fly, and you kind of like, I found just following your heart. For me, it was about following what I loved. When I took it all away, I was just naturally under pressure. You naturally gravitate to what you most love. The path of least resistance is through the heart. And I basically just, started to understand manifestation, and attraction comes from a physics or a science aspect, which was really opened me up to my abundance, or a sense of much greater abundance, is through integrating science with the business and my, spiritual journey.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about spirituality, science, and physics a little bit, and also what is happening right now in the society, or what has been happening, not even since 2020, but also before. Like, we are going through this massive, whether we call it purge or awakening or transformation or birth or whatever words people use for this. It's a common theme where, as humanity, we are going through something right now. So let's talk about that. What is it that you feel we're actually going through?
Basically, I think we're going through a major energetic shift on every level, including on a galactic level. That's where the big waves of energy are coming from, I believe. And Earth is getting rocked and rolled because of where we're positioned in space and electromagnetic frequencies and the sun, and how the whole matrix of the universe is all connected. And it's like that, this part of the Earth, where the Earth is in the galaxy, I believe we're getting a bit of a shake-up, and its position, its cycles, its history, it's all predictable. It's all been way pre-programmed by us, as our ancestors were us then. And I think that we're just experiencing a rebirth of the Earth into kind of a higher resonance of frequency, the light is coming in and purging the dark. And that's an electromagnetic and energetic fundamental energies are shifting at a structural paradigm shift level. So that shakes everything up. Everything's been shaken up and basically broken up. We've reached peak decentralization, and it's like a pendulum. It's the law of rhythm. There's the swing, the measure of the swing to the left is the measure of the swing the other way. And I think the pendulum of history has now reached its peak centralization of control by, a system that's falling, and it's now shifting. And it's all because the frequencies from our big galaxy are impacting our solar system. It's stepped right down to us in our little cells, and even in our body are universes that are just waking up in a sense.
And I just would like to add also for people like who are listening to us or maybe watching right now, right? So I know that this is a very global podcast and we have people literally from all over the world listening to it. And it also means people that come from different backgrounds, different cultural system, different belief system. So it means that you might be following any particular mystical school or religious school, or you consider yourself to be an atheist and you don't believe in anything in specific. You believe in science, or in nothing at all, right? So I would just open our audience today to be open-minded. And if we do use vocabulary maybe you're not familiar with or something new to you, or maybe you're not entirely even believe in yourself, that's okay. It's a big part of we're just exploring different points of view on what is happening. And especially given what is happening in the society right now. Like I know that, Tony, you are very much deep into the spiritual world. And I just always know that sometimes people who are not as deep, and we never know who is going to be listening, right? So it's they might or might not even understand, certain words. So let's just make sure that we also keep it like as simple as we can in terms of just vocabulary so that a child can understand, So that like I feel like really, because then this way we just reach much more people with the message. And also, like to what you shared, exactly. So we have things like happening in the galactic levels, we have things happening on energetical levels, which all now comes through to the earth. And that has been this big purge. And I like what you shared about the decentralization. And I know that that's also a big passion of yours in many ways, right? From spiritual to financial and everything in between. So let's also talk about that. So how do you understand decentralization and what do you see is happening right now in this area?
Decentralization is just basically a breaking up of centralized control systems, which really resembles kind of like, the structure of our world and our financial system has become very centralized through government and, intermerging of government and big business has become very blurred. And so, so that means that, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So so systems, those systems are breaking apart at a fundamental level, and it's a ground up. It's more of a groundswell of people, of technicians, of actually technology is really just the great disruptor here. And by creating the blockchain, which is really the blockchain is just a basic ledger, all completely digital. Completely digitized ledger that can hold all transactions, and it can be coded in such a way so that it can be very moldable and adaptable and very good for creating a fundamental security layer. A more, if you can imagine a beehive or a rabbit warren, under the ground, and it's like, we should be able to live in kind of like parallel economies in a way is what we're creating, bringing things back to more local level. Ultimately, the ultimate decentralization is like the little self-sustainable farmlet with the community and everyone's helping each other. And that was the old ways, how everyone worked together and you do the fields and, grow the food. And that's that's a decentralized world.
Yeah.
And so now we're kind of just tipping back into a simpler kind of lifestyle, I think. But technology is playing a big part because it can help to break up the censorship, and the invasion on our personal privacy has got untenable now.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you yourself have a community, right? Also, because and quite an engaged community. And if I'm not mistaken, you do specialize largely in basically everything around food, right?
Yes.
Correct? So could you tell us a bit more about this, like what it is that you're doing, what's actually happening in the community?
Well, we have a group around us who basically were into crypto, but they wanted the whole spirituality and lots of different things. And many of them I've known for many years through all the different other things I've been doing, and that we've often become friends with a lot of people. But we're looking at land, creating a retreat. There's quite a few of us who are, we're looking at creating a sort of quantum healing kind of retreat where you get these cubes called scalar cubes. And we sell these also scalar waves. Scalar is like the primary energy to even electromagnetic. It's the 0 point energy, which is the pure potential energy. And there's devices now like med beds, you might have heard, that can create this environment. So we're very focused on health, nature, and creating that decentralized society. So we can, our community is sort of not like clients. We're like a big family that all, working together. And using money is important because it's not money, it's exchanging energy. So we're just trying to redefine what money is and what wealth is. And it's about an inner journey and melding that with the community around you. And also, and being able to have a nice life that contributes, basically. So just being a living example of what we seek, we kind of doing it through DeFi Freedom and Earth Star. My other brand is Earth Star, which is where the elemental spiritual side comes in. And DeFi Freedom is about the conscious of wealth, abundance, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it means that there is like a financial aspect, there is more community aspect, there is like everything around health, lifestyle, food, and the spirituality element to that, right?
Yes, and what I'm doing with Tahira Sultan Khan and the eco societies, which obviously you're involved with. I mean, so we connected with other communities like that who've got big visions, and we're doing global things. But we also want to come back to the land. It's the land as well as in nature.
Exactly. And I'm not even sure I mentioned yet that publicly, yes, but we are doing eco-societies with Tahira from Golden Door. And in fact, I think the first prototype is going to be in Ghana. And like I'm going next month. I mean, sadly, we won't see you there. But great. And you are in the leadership team of people who are coming together to organize it, which is like really, really beautiful. And yes, and that also has been just a big conversation about decentralization. And, for me, so it's interesting, honestly, like even for myself, I'm not even sure I entirely understand how decentralization works. Like, because we all grew up in a culture which was just so massively centralized. Like I don't even have a point of reference, right? Like when I look, for example, at NFTs or metaverse, and we even like talking about our project, the Eco Societies. I mean, the idea of decentralization like sounds really beautiful, but like in real life, on the practical term, I'm not sure I even know how it works.
Well, theatre is more of a diversified, distributed. We're a society where the resources are more evenly distributed and where there's not one single point of failure. There's many different, if you like, just like the old native Indian days, they'd have the main chief, but they had councils, and they worked at a true council level where the community had council, and they knew the art of negotiating. but basically, but there's a more flat plane egalitarian type society will come out of it because the wealth is more evenly distributed through a proper decentralized.
And that's what I really like about decentralized idea, that, the resources in general, right? All kind of wealth. It just, there's more opportunity to just give it to more people in kind of in a more fair way. And that's also for me personally, like why I, participate in this, and even with the HERA in eco-society projects. And I'm also just very curious about like what it is, that you are doing in New Zealand with your community. And the part of me goes, I want to talk to Tony after the interview to see how I can get involved. And of course, everyone who is listening right now, if you feel, it sounds really interesting, I would like to join, people who are creating a different future, then of course we will also include ways for you to connect with Tony. Make sure you just read the description on the podcast or on YouTube, and there will be links there how you connect with him directly. And Tony, for you, the other thing I would like to ask, you already have had and lived through so many things in your life. Like you had all kinds of experiences, you did things, right? So, and you are creating something now. So I would like to ask a few questions just about your lessons and about you as a human being. So let's say we start with when you look back at your life, and let's say if you were to meet your younger self, and we can define younger self any age. And I would ask you, please define what age you would like to talk to. It could be 8, 18, 28, 38, anything, right? And so if you were to look at your younger self at the particular part of your life, and now being who you are today and knowing what you know, what would you like to say to that younger part of you? So and please share with us the age, the message, and the circumstances, like why would you like to say it exactly at that time? I know I'm kind of putting you on spot right now.
I'd probably go back to when I was 21, when I left New Zealand and went traveling the world, and I would say, thank you.
I feel to do this.
That's what I would probably say.
Because it just, I guess, opens so much. So thank you just for getting out and, exploring and seeing other things.
Because the path that I took is the only path that I really was meant to take. So why rewrite it by doing another one when I've already, to me, it's like, but I've had learned many lessons for sure, but basically it all comes back to one. Ultimately, the polarity collapses and it's just one. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Right? I talk to many people in my life, but I don't think anyone was able to put so far in 2 words an entire message, which is great.
I love the idea of creating through language and word and sound and resonance. This is my thing, is I love plays on words, and I've played with words all my life. And I like to bring them to life and kind of talk with very visual sometimes, and also be able to cut through that linear. That's why I lose people sometimes, because I get, maybe a little bit seemingly spacey or multidimensional, but that's just my mind thinks like that sometimes, and I can't help it.
It's okay. That's the whole point, right? We are the way we are. We're all individual and unique in our own way. And that's how we contribute to the collective. And you're absolutely right. Also, there are some people who may be more like left brain kind of wired. There are more who are a bit more right brain wired. There are more who have more integrated left and right? So some may be more logic focused, other more abstract focused. And some people kind of have a combination of the both. And that's the beauty of our reality, that we are all so very different. And here at this podcast, we also look at things like consciousness and business and money and relationship and human development at full potential from all different angles. That's the idea, right? So absolutely, you just yourself, and I definitely celebrate you being you. And people who listen, and you will see it will bring up what it will bring up one way or another. And whatever comes, it's all beautiful because we are all learning one way or another, right? So it's all, it's all perfect this way.
Yeah, I totally feel it too. I mean, I feel very aligned with the way when you talk, I can feel the energy of what you say, which is awesome.
Yes. And actually, what I just learned listening to your story, we have a certain like a synchronicity with timing, because I left my country of origin at the age of 21 too. So I understand. And, when I look back, I think I would say the same two words. Thank you to my younger self for doing that. Like, I can't imagine how my life would be by now. And we never know. It could be better. It could be worse. I just know it would have been different. That's what I know for sure. Now, we don't know how different, right? But given who I am today and the life that I have, I'm happy with that. So I'm glad that I have that. I don't know about other things. And that's probably then also just message for all the younger people who are listening, and you are maybe in your early 20s, absolutely go travel. Wherever in the world you're born, whatever culture you're born, if you can, and there's always a way to do it one way or another. And go around the world, visit different cultures, talk to people. To me, traveling and meeting people of different cultures is probably one of the best education a human being can have. It changes you so much and you learn so much. And just overall, it removes so many beliefs that are no longer serving you, so many kind of preconceived cliche about others. And fundamentally, you just realize that there's really no difference between person, I don't know, in Singapore, New Zealand, Tokyo, Peru, Canada, South Africa, right? Or like anywhere, or Switzerland, I don't know, anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're all one at one level, and we're all having multiple experiences. Yeah, but it's certainly an interesting time in our lives right now, and the world is. I think it does well to just be a good witness right now, rather than get too try and remain centered and don't get polarized.
Yes, exactly. And but also just again listening to you, what comes to me is for people who might be processing everything that we are sharing right now, and just wondering like how, what can I do, right? Like how can I contribute, or even how can I just deal with my own life, where for many it feels right now it's falling apart. There's because we go individually and collectively just through so much clearance at the moment that many people feel lost and confused, and they don't entirely even know how to go about their lives further. And so I just would like to share, a few words like from my perspective that I feel helps and would help, definitely helped me. And I see it's helping other people. And then, Tony, I would like you to add, how you see that, right? So like from my side, what I see and what definitely helped me is community. That's like number one, the biggest one. And under community, we understand for some people, it could be family. Like if you're blessed with you have actually a family and your parents may be still around, or you have siblings, or maybe it's your own family that you created already, like it's an immediate family, right? Not everyone has it, but if you have it, those are the closest people. And I always encourage heal all possible traumas and dramas you might have had in your immediate family, because really holding on to kind of grudges from the past is really not worth it when we think about just living in love and harmony with people around us. So family is definitely a big one. Now, if you feel your personal family, and I'm talking now to people who are listening to us, like entirely beyond repair, and that happens too, and there's nothing there that, can be kind of healed, or maybe you're not ready to do it, which is perfectly fine, or maybe you don't have a family, then really community comes in from people who are not blood related, but they are soul related to you, right? And that's where we talk about our soul family. And there are so many people around the world that you can connect. And the beauty of that is you can speak different languages. You could come from different backgrounds. You have different jobs, different social status, different belief system. None of this matters. If you connect on this very deep, soulful level, that becomes your soul family. And with these people, they become your network and support. And at times when you feel confused or lost, I don't know what to do, you turn to them asking for help and guidance. And so for people who are listening to us, if you do feel that you need some help and guidance right now, so the best thing, I guess, either turn on to your own family and find community that you resonate with and become a part of it and see how you can contribute. And so that it will be natural then for other people to contribute to you. So how do you feel about it, Tony?
I pretty much 100% agree with about everything you said. And I think good and community comes from connection to having roots, this is what I call earth stars, like trying to balance up the elements in the earth, elements, the bases in the earth. So it's also about having sort of sovereignty over your land and your spirit. And then that creates beautiful community and consciousness is to me it's fostering knowledge, which brings consciousness ultimately.
Consciousness. I'm curious now, what is your understanding of consciousness since you said it?
I see it as the sum total of everything you've ever thought, felt, and done, and it's and the and the level of awareness of that you are actually doing it.
Wow, that's very comprehensive, and yet simple at the same time. That's what I love about you. It's very, it's interesting, even though you say that you feel that you might be like very multi-dimensional, in your perception, and you kind of talk about everything at the same time. But the interesting part is actually when you do say, it comes out, very precise and very simple, which is really, it's beautiful to watch how you just play with words and how you're able to bring them together. That's fun. And now about your own spiritual journey, like I'm just curious because I know you again, you have done a lot. You have been, to many experiences and things. So when you look back or forward, right, depends how you look at it, at things you lived through and experience, or you would like to experience, what do you feel really is most impactful on forming who you are?
I think it would have to be being in the Himalayan mountains in India at about 18,000 feet. It's not quite as simple as that.
How many feet again?
We got up to 18,500 feet at the highest point. But I would say it was the experiences. I went to India. I had this love affair with India, and I took people to the source of the Ganga River and other, sacred rivers in India. I had the blessing to take these people up there, and that it was managing the people, but the experience of the hallowed ground, and then the response from that spiritually to me was like massive. And it was spread over many years. I did, like 14, 15 trips to India, and I spent a lot of time in ashrams, and I hung out there, and I went to all kinds of alleyways and palaces. It was a real adventure. I could write a book just about one India trip alone.
I understand.
So, of course, I was never going to have a normal life after that.
That's a good way of saying it.
Not normal in the sense that but it's given me an incredible spiritual, I can't explain it, an energy inside me that pulls me along. It's purpose-driven, and it's, but, I'm a human being, and part of the thing is, sometimes my body feels like it's falling apart because, I'm a little bit older than I was. But it's incredible, being on this consciously on the path. It's quite fun.
Yes. And again, I found some, synchronicity with timing and experiences, because I have been to India too many times, and including the Himalayan mountains, where we at some point with friends, we drove motorbikes, those huge ones, Royal Enfield, the 350 ones. We drove them through Himalayan mountains for several weeks in Ladakh. And that during the time when, it kind of goes on and off between India and Pakistan, right? The conflict, the military conflict. So when we were doing it, it was high again. So the Srinagar was, in the lockdown. And I remember we couldn't even use any cell phones, because the Indian army was dimming and blocking, the cellular data, and just because of the conflict with Pakistan at that time. So we were about maybe 10, 12 people on our trip. We had to use walkie-talkies. So
what year was this?
Say it again?
What year was this?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was in 2017. It's about 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. But I would have to look exactly, but I think it was in 2017. And so we were using the walkie-talkies, which was quite a funny way to distribute and communicate, speaking about go back to basics. And I can definitely tell you also, just through all kind of other trips to India, and what you said with seeing different people and different religious places and ashrams and teachers. It's absolutely impacts. And I would then also like to share that, at least from my side, the way how my journey was, I had to almost pick myself back after going through a massive, what they call the falling of the ego system. Right. So when it's becomes decentralized in the same way.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I'm sharing is with people, with our audience today, because I remember how difficult it was to come back into whatever the real life is. Right. So after having this kind of experiences, and I heard it from so many people and friends that I know, that people go on those pilgrimages and trips, but then they're coming back in the society, coming back into the family, coming back into the business, coming back into the community, right? So that often becomes even more challenging than actually going away. And I feel like this is a really important point. And if someone who is listening to us right now feels that you are at that junction, right? When maybe you went somewhere, you had those massive experiences, and now you're struggling integrate back into whatever your life was before that, then talk to us, reach out, right? Comment, send a message, and let's see maybe if there's a way how we can help or point you in a direction where you can get resources and support. Because I do firmly believe that a big part of the spiritual journey is a hero's journey. And heroes always come back home. That's the part of the journey, right? So we go on this massive journey, and we all do it in our own beautifully unique way. And we go through all the challenges and trial and errors, and we meet some, monsters that usually our own inner fears just projected in the outer reality. So we do all of that.
An archetypical life.
Say it again, please.
It's about the archetypes. It's an archetypical life.
Exactly. It's an archetypical life. Exactly. And we do all of that to come back home. And we are coming back home first to ourselves. And then, of course, also, to people that we are meant to serve and meant to contribute. And so the coming home part after a massive spiritual experience is a very important part. And I always feel it's really important to remember this. I don't even know how you got me talking about that with your listening.
Well, you're absolutely right, and it's a very incredible stage in your development, and everyone goes through it. And if we can try and have empathy for those who are struggling, because we've all been there. When you realize we've all been where people are, and we can stretch and visualize where others have been, if we're open humility-wise to that, then, well, you're in the perfect, presence, really, aren't you?
Yeah, Yes, exactly. And thank you for this beautiful reminder. Again, it is just so powerful about humility and acceptance and just accepting everyone's journey and suspending the judgment, right? Because that's, like it's kind of a joke, but I'm not sure how funny it is, in a way. And I definitely have been there myself. Like I'm the first one to raise the hand and say, hi, right? But then I do see around sometimes when even my friends, people from a spiritual community kind of go into places like, let's say, Singapore, right, which is a bit more urban and people maybe more material focused in the percentage of the population. Or maybe if you go to London, I don't know, New York, or like just places which are maybe more, again, centralized still, right, in so many ways. And so conversations are different and then maybe less spiritual, and kind of people come across like less spiritual. And so my spiritual friends who come, let's say, from Bali or like other places, when they go, to those more centralized places, often start saying, I don't know how to talk to these people. They just talk about travel and money and children. I can absolutely not have, I don't relate to those conversations anymore. And of course, I always kind of laugh because I definitely remember myself being exactly that way about maybe 7-10 years ago in my life, when I would come back from experiences like in India, home to my place, and we would have a dinner party, with my husband, and there would be conversations going around the table, and I would be the odd one sitting there and thinking, I cannot relate to these people. What are they talking about, right? What are those conversations about? I did it just now, 10 years later, but I learned like about my journey. It's all part of the process. And I feel like it's so like no one is kind of ahead, no one is behind. And I can definitely say that I'm learning so much every day from humans, including humans who don't even consider themselves to be like conscious or spiritual or believers. They think that they are, very practical and just kind of down to earth people. But often when I talk to them, they say some of the most, phenomenal, wise things about life, just because they learned it in a different way. It doesn't mean that somehow it is like less important or less valuable, right? So I feel there is this also, it feels like in a society, historically, we tend to put spirituality much higher than practicality. Right? It's kind of, it's better to be spiritual, or, like spiritual people somehow viewed to be more of a value almost than people who are more material, right? And historically, so like all the material people, which were called lay people historically, were supposed then to give money like to more spiritual people, to priests, to monks, right? To support, which I understand why, and I understand, how it's all happening. And I myself gave a lot of money over the years, to monasteries and support practitioners. But also who I am today and the way, how we look at the reality right now, I feel it's also part of what we started our conversation about decentralization. It's important to close this gap. It's not that one is higher and the other one lower. It's equally important, and you have to close the gap, right? And let's say, a person who is dedicating their life to spiritual search and practices and meditation is equally important as someone who is actually, washing their clothes and cooking them food and making sure, they don't die from hunger during their meditation. So it's equal importance. And that's kind of, I feel, ties beautifully with this beginning of our conversation today about decentralization and kind of unity also, right? Because it's all then comes together.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Basically, it can all come together. We have the tools now, we have the technology, we have the desire now since COVID. We've had a lot more people are now questioning and awakening. So I think the timing is perfect for creating something new now, because I think the forces are with us. We have the wind at our back, because especially when it's done with the right intention. It really comes down to putting intentions. And but the technology is where the decentralized, because once it's, if you imagine, like most of the action of an iceberg, for instance, is under the water. And that's really what the blockchain is to the iceberg. it's the coding. And look, everything is coded. I'll say everything's coded. It can be coded centralized, it can be coded decentralized. But we are coded as decentralized beings. Our DNA is still, it's there, it's a code. And so if we could think of the blockchain as like that, it may help some people as an analogy. But when that's done, that's fundamental, because the byproduct, our body, is just going to follow the code. So when you know the code, then you can, crack the code, That's part of the little fun saying I used to have is, we're here to crack the code of the matrix, really. And Kryptonite is the answer.
Yes. And it's just saying, I'm getting like a goosebumps, all over my body, because it just resonates so much to yes, all those movies, the Matrix movie, the Neo, right? I mean, we all thought it's fantasy. It is not, guys. Hello. I mean, red pill, like a blue pill, and or I don't know, yellow pill or whatever it is, a no pill, but whatever we do. So there are just so many ways how we can fundamentally what is happening. We are opening up to our true nature and our full potential as humans on individual and collective level. That's what's fundamentally happening. And it is just, we're looking at it from different perspective, right? And
absolutely.
And it defines by your culture and your upbringing, you would resonate to different teachings and different people and different communities. And that's why what I do also here, just bring people to you, right? Our dear women and men and who are listening today, that you can find what you resonate with and connect with those people, and then find this door that helps to fully realize yourself. Tony?
I couldn't agree more. Sorry, I was just my partner has come home, and I was slightly distracted for a second.
No, it's beautiful.
That was very well said. For me, it's and having this natural intelligence, going back to what's naturally intelligent and naturally. We can live and use technology, but we have to have the balance with nature. To me, coming back to nature is central. Earth and spirit together must be connected, and that's what's happening. But everyone's at different stages, and it's all beautiful, even though but we can still feel the pain as well. But it's still the big picture has yet to be revealed.
Exactly. The big picture is yet to be revealed. I love those words. And let's wrap up with them, our interview today, because it feels like it really summarizes everything together. So the big picture yet to be revealed. And we are all going in this direction. And that was Tony Knight with us today on Timeless Teachings. And thank you very much to everyone for showing up for yourself, first of all, and listening to the interview. And so do you remember to subscribe to the podcast, YouTube channel? You can connect on Instagram at The Timeless Teachings. And we see you next week.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fantastic.
A gentle reminder that this is not a regular podcast, because here we have no rules and no scripted questions. All conversations are spontaneous, unfiltered, and real, with people from all over the world, regardless of their race, religion, nationality, skin color, language, or social circumstances. The intention for this podcast is to showcase the infinite variety of how human beings think and what they do to create happiness, fulfillment, self-realization, health, wealth, legacy, and overall, a truly spectacular life. Did you enjoy the interview? Feel free to share this episode with friends, subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. And remember, you are the master of your own life.